Section 8. Properties of polymers and plastics. ChemTalk. Polymers. Polymers are long chains of monomers. Often referred to as macromolecules, polymers are enormously long molecules made up of many repeating smaller molecules. The smaller molecules that make up a polymer are called monomers, from the Greek root mono, meaning one. Polymers may be made of tens of thousands of repeating monomer units with molecular weights reaching to millions of daltons. 1 dalton is equal to 1 atomic mass unit. Monomers are the building blocks of polymers, the links that make up the polymer chains. These molecular chains may be branched or unbranched, interconnected at various points, or interconnected at a great many points so that they form rigid solids. At the molecular level, they may be long chains or sheets, or even a complicated three-dimensional lattice. Natural polymers. Long before there were any synthetic polymers, natural polymers existed in starch, cellulose, proteins, and DNA. Starch is made by plants as a food source, and the repeating unit is the glucose molecule, which is sugar. Cellulose is a plant polymer that is also based on the glucose molecule, but is arranged in a different configuration. Proteins are another class of organic compounds that contain nitrogen and in which the repeating units are amino acids. Meats, beans, and eggs are familiar foods that are mostly made of proteins. DNA is a category of organic compounds that are found in cells. DNA contains the genetic instructions used in the development and functioning of all living things. DNA is a polymer made up of repeating units called nucleotides. While each nucleotide may have a molecular mass of about 200 AMU, each DNA molecule may contain millions of nucleotides. For example, the largest human chromosome is chromosome 1, and it contains 220 million nucleotides. Every trait that is characteristic of a type of plant or animal is determined by its DNA pattern. The basis of heredity and the transmission of traits from one generation to the next are based on DNA replication during cell division. However, sometimes an error is made in the coding of DNA. That these occasional mistakes are passed on from one generation to the next provides evidence for the theory of evolution. Because these genetic errors seem to occur on a regular statistical basis, the historical point at which species with common ancestors separated can be calculated. This technique is called the molecular clock. For example, the DNA of humans and chimpanzees differ by approximately 1%, which means the two species are very similar. For comparison, the range of human DNA variation is 20 times less than this. Evolutionary scientists estimate that humans and chimpanzees had a common ancestor 4 to 7 million years ago. Other examples show that dogs and gray wolves parted ways genetically about 1 million years ago. Asian and African elephants separated about 7.6 million years ago. Although such estimates are approximate and may contain significant error, the information generally is consistent with some geologic or prehistoric data. Synthetic polymers. The first synthetic polymer was developed in response to a call for a synthetic substance for ivory. In 1909, Leo Baekeland received a patent for the first fully synthetic polymer, which he named Bakelite. Bakelite is a three-dimensional resin network made from the polymerization of phenyl and formaldehyde, two organic chemicals. This polymer is a hard, non-conducting material that cannot be melted and remolded. Such a polymer is called a thermoset polymer, one that is soft enough to be molded when first prepared, but once it hardens, it remains hard. Other thermoset polymers include rubber tires, urea formaldehyde foam used in insulation and plywood, and melamine for countertops. When heated, these types of polymers will decompose before melting and generally are not recyclable. Thermoplastic polymers, on the other hand, are recyclable because they can be softened by heat and remolded to make new objects. Polyethylene, a polymer of ethylene, is the simplest and cheapest thermoplastic polymer. Over 20 million tons of polyethylene is produced in the United States each year. There are two principal types of polyethylene: low-density polyethylene, LDPE, and high-density polyethylene, HDPE. LDPE has many side chains branching off from the main polymer chain. This structure makes it lighter, low density, and more flexible. The sturdier HDPE has fewer side chains, which allow the chains to pack together more tightly, giving it rigidity and a higher melting point. So here is the structure of HDPE, high density polyethylene, and here's the structure of LDPE, low density polyethylene. There are many other types of synthetic polymers in use today, and the list continues to grow. A list of recyclable plastics with their corresponding codes is shown in the table on the following page.